To kind of start, just give me an idea of where you guys are at in the process. With Jmailer, have you guys started sending? Have you not
Yeah,
even
we haven't
begun
we
sending?
haven't started sending. So what I've done is, working with Ted, I've got the I've got his big database. I'm putting together my database of contacts. We've got the email set up all ready to go. Um, he said, don't give them all, 20,000 names or whatever at once because they'll just, they'll throttle them over time. We want to send them during business hours. So that's where I am. I've loaded it into the JMailer portal, and I've done some test emails, to make sure my formatting's right. But that's as far as I am. I've gone.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very cool. All right. And it looks like we are fortunate enough to where I still have login. Yes, perfect abilities on Jmailer. So I'll actually be able to even share my screen and actually give you a little bit of insight onto how I
Awesome.
was doing things. Yeah, because we have actually moved away from Jmailer recently with our other companies. We use it as kind of our initial
Sure. Yep.
fuel and testers for our emails.
Right.
But the company I'm with right now is insurance, and so it takes kind of a bit of a bit of a more personal touch with the
Sure.
partners that we're
I
going
know.
after. Yeah, so we actually kind of pivoted towards a more targeted sense. But that being said, Jmailer Pro, great tool for mass email sending. Going to be incredibly useful for this kind of initial grabbing our guinea pigs, right? As I'm sure you'll hear Ted talk about them. We really,
Right.
in the beginning, we're trying to grab those first guinea pigs. That's why we use a vanilla list.
Right.
Other things to keep in mind during the beginning, of course, is something we call, or I kind of call our email score, right? And it's really our spam score and our server score, and that comes from a couple things that I'm sure Ted has already talked about, things like our copy within the email, right? We like to plug that into a spam tester and test the email copy for any spam words, all that good stuff. I'm sure he may have already told you about.
Right. Yep. Yep.
And then the other part of that is going to be keeping in mind that building this email score, right? When we start Jmailer, they're fresh servers, right?
Right.
And so if the other thing to keep in mind too, actually, now that I'm talking about the servers, is they if you did not purchase their hygiene at the time that you purchased an account, they put you on their kind of mediocre
I
servers.
did.
They
I
don't.
did. I purchased it for like 5,000 contacts just to see what it would do.
Okay,
Should I?
that's awesome. No, that's perfect because if you did it at the time of the purchase of the account, they do this because they don't just want anybody coming in and basically burning through bad lists,
Right.
burning through their good servers with bad lists, right? So what they do is anybody that signs up, at the time of purchase of the account, they purchase hygiene, they automatically put those guys on good, really their top servers, right? Now
Oh,
that
perfect.
being said, if you had not done that, they are still very flexible and understanding. And even if right now after starting you start noticing some like really high bounce rates. Now that being said, in the beginning you are still going to see like oftentimes 40% bounce rates, but I'm talking about if you start seeing 70, 60, 80% bounce rates,
Yeah.
that's a sign that the servers aren't necessarily that great, right? It's more of a mediocre server. And so they actually have been very flexible with, you can reach out to them, explain to them. For example, we were using a list that had been cleaned, just not by their service, right? And so
Right.
basically all I did was reach out to them, let them know that, and they said, okay, no problem. Let me go ahead and put you on our really clean servers. We just do, and that's when he explained to me why they do what they do, to keep their servers clean and keep them away from bad lists. So those are just things to keep in mind as we're going along. You keep in mind, in the beginning we have this email score and it's pretty low because it's a brand new server, right? And so we want to do things like testing, to all of our, different types of email, Gmail, Yahoo's, as many different types of emails as you can kind of test against, just to see where they're showing up, if they're going into spam, that kind of thing, in the beginning, because we want to start also making interaction with already really strong email servers. So that's the other thing testing can do. Make sure you reply during those testings, because that just helps boost our email score in the beginning as well. Already starting those replies to, what the servers would know as solid emails, right? Emails that had been around for a while, right? And that just, in the beginning, right, every single email that goes out is creating this handshake with the, the other, the leads email, and that leads email either, has a filter on it that allows it to go through or doesn't. And sometimes those are harsher or weaker. And that's why we get really high bounce rates in the beginning, because we have, very fresh servers. And so that's going to be a slow build. So I suggest, and this is actually based off of what they told me after getting on the phone with them over at JMailer. In the first week, you really don't want to do more than probably 100 a day. And then at each week after that, you can kind of increase by double, is kind of how I played it.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of increased, so 100, 200, 400, 800, kind of like that. Okay. And then just depending on if I started seeing any sort of, weird bounce rates or anything like that, sometimes I would maybe throttle it back. Like if it typically, not always, but around the 400, to 800 jump, that's a pretty big jump. So sometimes I would see some, higher bounce rates might drop down to like a 600 the next day, just to make sure we're not pushing that limit. And basically it's just to imagine it like, on the other side, the handshake is trying to see, okay, well, this is a brand new server that's already a check for like, okay, an unknown, right? How often are they getting responses, right? All these things come into play as a factor in that email score, as well as how many emails are going out per day, right? If it's a brand new server and there's 500 emails going out today, that checks two big boxes, right? In their this is probably spam filter, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that being said, after we've kind of, started warming things up, the other thing is going to be, we want to be sending at, the appropriate time of day, and that's why we kind of chop up the list, right? And so basically we would bring in and import a portion of the list each day. And so after getting logged in, and is my screen coming through okay on your side?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Awesome. And so you might have recognized this is after you get logged into JMailer Pro, right? And you got your hygiene over here on the side. So whenever you want to do that, you drop into the hygiene. But let's pull open our mailer, which is just clicking on one of these guys. All right, and so the dashboard, this is all brand new actually too. They are a family-owned company, and that's one of the reasons their customer service is actually so great. They do also, if you do ever call in, they do a screening process. So basically, you always have to leave a message, but they're actually really good about getting back within like 2 hours on average, pretty quickly. So very good customer service, and their support tickets too. Down here is kind of a new thing. And they're actually been pretty good about getting back to me on those as well. So very good guys, and really deep into this kind of email process, and then very knowledgeable about it too. So if any real kind of tough questions come up, that support ticket is always a good tool to use. So the dashboard's where I did most of my work from. Honestly, is one of the cool things I liked about this new kind of dashboard they built. This family actually built it. His son actually built this whole thing on his own, I think with a couple underlings. But basically, let's drop into each day. The first thing you're going to do is create the list. And I always would name it. So, for example, these guys, DataStream, when we were using this, they were, because it was insurance, they were only licensed in certain states, right? So I could only.
So you pick the state. I see how you.
Yep. So that was just us, right? But for example, for you guys, it could be just list one, if you didn't
Yeah,
necessarily,
I get you.
or if you did have, whatever kind of a feature. The other thing is right now, keep this short because you'll find out later that the names get cut off. I had already talked to them about fixing that, but so it becomes harder to read. So you want to put all your important differentiating features as far to the front of this list name as possible, because you'll find out later that the name gets cut off when you're trying to pick which list to send out. But that being said, I always like to include a date as well, because the other thing is you'll notice like the created, I've also mentioned this to their support ticket as well. Their created seems to have it's not 100%. It changes, every once in a while. So this one was correct, right? It changed from 13 to, but I didn't create all these on the same day. I created each of these on the day that it says over here. Yeah, that's why I always add the extra date, because this doesn't seem to be 100%. And it just makes it easier when you're going through and you're just reminding yourself which has to go out. Just ensures, right, that nobody falls through the gaps, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah. So I always like, and the other thing I like to correspond this name to the list, right? So I would basically go into the master list each day, and then for this guy, I had to portion out the states, right? So I would go down to Pennsylvania's, pull those into their own list, and then say there was, 300 Pennsylvanias or whatever. There wasn't for these guys, there was only like 50, so I didn't have to actually break it up. But for example, let's say, California is a better example. So California had a bunch, right, where I had to break it up. So you see California 18, right? So that meant California probably had like, 500, and I was only sending 100 a day, right, or something. Or California probably had a couple thousand, right, when I look at it right now. And so I only was doing 100 a day. So you had California 1 was that first 100, California 2, second, and so on and so forth. And then but the rest of these guys, you can see, didn't really have a whole lot. So they're really just ones. Texas 1, New Jersey 1, Pennsylvania 1. So if they don't need it, I didn't really break it off as a separate one. But for example, if I was just plowing through the whole list, it would probably just be like list 1, list 2, list 3, or maybe if I had the source, right? If I had the source of where that kind of list was coming from. That was one thing I did for another company. We divided it by source, where that lead came from. And so it would be like it was I think some of our competitors, which were like Constant Contact, MailChimp, those guys,
that
right?
Makes sense. It makes sense.
So it'd be like MailChimp 1. Yeah. So just however it's divided up, that's kind of how I did it. And the reason it works out this way well is because you'll see in the future, it kind of cuts off. So we want to keep it short, but all the important stuff at the front. And then after, I'm sure you've already seen the campaigns. Let's view campaigns. I'm sure you've already had a chance. You said you did some testing, so you've probably already got your campaigns built in, right? You've already got your
I built I haven't built the campaign. I just tested that first email.
Gotcha. Email. Okay, cool. Then I'll go into this a little bit.
But I can build into that,
Yeah. So one of the cool things that they did recently is they used to actually have it where you had to build a campaign for each list. They really needed it separate, but now, and that was because, and that was because it was the custom fill-ins, couldn't translate in their old process. So now in their new process, they do. So you really just need however many emails that you're doing. If you have 3 drips, in the email, you would have email 1, 2, and 3, right? And that's really all you would need to create for campaigns. And that's how I would just title them literally. And once again, I needed the 1 to go because I think it even cut off at like email. So when I was looking at it, I couldn't tell which one. So I had to drop the 1 in the front of email just so I could tell which ones were which when I was matching them up. So after you have created your campaigns, those you actually don't really have to ever look at again after they're created. It'll really just be going in, creating the list. And then once the list is created, you'll import to that list. So you'll it actually also will ask if you would like to even import. It used to not, but now it gives you steps to follow. And so if you for whatever reason miss that step though, you can always click on the name and it pulls up this little pop-up, import files right there, boom. You just import your file.
Got it.
Another thing to remember about the file is it is going to have to be a CSV comma delimited file. And you want to really clean it up as much as possible. So it's a real easy, you just go into save as and find CSV comma delimited.
Okay.
And the other thing you'll want to do is really cut out as much information as you can. Really, all you need is the company name, the email contact, and the first name. Those are really the only three. Now, this company, we needed the state, right? So that was the fourth one that they included. So there could be a little bit of flex there, but I would cut it down, that list, as much of those columns as you can, right? Remove as many of those columns as possible, as humanly possible.
Good.
And actually, let me go ahead and give you an example of what I would do, because you probably have email 1 and email 2 for 2 columns. So that's the other thing. You actually have to combine those. And so really all I would do for that when I was combining those, right? For example, I'll just do it real quick, actually. I'm just going to do like a short little, maybe I was doing like 20 or something, right, as a tester. So I would copy that, whatever portion of the list. I need a new one, create, boom, paste. Oftentimes I would have to go, it wouldn't be so close to the top, so I'd go back and drop in the header as well. Go back, copy the header, drop it in as well. Make sure that those all line up. Because often you're not up by one where you're grabbing that. So then basically I would come in, don't need website, delete, don't need last name, delete, don't need title, delete. I don't need the result. I'm going to keep it there for now because in some portions of the list, like if you do have this kind of result, I don't know if this was the list that Ted may have sent you. Yeah, right. It might be exactly. It'll probably be something similar to this. And so basically, I leave those for now, and then I don't need anything else. But you can leave, like for example, one of the companies, right? I left source, right, because I needed to know which source it was from back for that company. But really don't need it if you don't need it. So these are kind of the only guys. And then right now, we do need to put them all into one. So basically, how I would do this is copy, paste, make 2 forms of it, right? And then just delete one portion of it. So these guys don't need. Bam, shift cells to the left, right, and boom, it puts all those, and then now I don't need any of those guys, right? So basically I just duplicate it and then delete one portion of each side, right? And that way, now suddenly they're all in one. And this way also, if you had any invalids within the list, you can just go through. I would typically just, even before, go through, highlight, and just clear them, right? Because you don't need the invalid emails at all. Then at this point, we can go ahead and delete our valid column there. And so now we have a really clean, really basic, right? Because the thing we want to do is keep it as simple for the system as we can because it's pulling it in. So another thing we're going to want to do, just in case, you might want to just do it to the entire list, but I often still double check just in case. We want to find and replace. We want to find commas and replace with semicolons. Place all. So luckily they had already been cleaned out. Because it's comma delimited, any extra commas within here, we'll throw it off. The other one is sometimes like control enters within a cell, where they do an enter within a cell, we'll throw it off, which is you can find them with a control J, and it just puts kind of an invisible little blinking, barely seeable period there. Yeah, and I just replaced those with like a space or maybe 2 spaces, replace all, and it looks like I already did that too. But that just kind of a double check, gets rid of any of those kind of funky formatting. I also like to come through, just clear any formats, right? Anything like that. And then we're going to go to File, Save As, and then it's going to be not an Excel workbook. We're going to want CSV, comma delimited. And then I always typically tile these.
You copied that list down, so there's a second copy for the second email, right?
For the so this
Yeah.
list, you'll be able to choose within after you push this list into Jmailer. That's the one time you'll have to do it. Yeah. So you
Gotcha.
won't ever so you won't have to do it again for the second email. Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
just one list a day that you'll have to upload for each day. That first email, whoever's getting email 1 that day, you'll have to go in, pull a portion of that list out, upload that into Jmailer. It doesn't necessarily have to be day of. It could be the day before that you did it. I just did it day of, early morning, because it just kept it cleaner for me. I just like to do it that way. But you could hypothetically, for sure, do it upload that list the night before, and then send out the next day, right? You could do it that way. You could even hypothetically probably you go through and upload all the lists, in portions, but that doesn't really leave room for flexibility, right? If you ever needed to throttle backwards or throttle forwards, you kind of want to have that flexibility to be able to throttle on your own. So when I was saving, I typically also titled it as like CSV, and then I would do, if I was doing, the MailChimp or whatever state underscore, so it mimicked what was going to be inside of, Jmailer Pro, basically.
Right.
So it mimicked that list name, right?
Got
And
it.
so once that's all done, right, we've gotten our list all built out or pushed through. And it's a great way you can actually come in here and check in the contacts that came through. I always like to double check. For example, you imported a list of 100 and you're only seeing like 60 here. Something went wonky with your import.
Yep. Got it.
So you got to go through it and double check that again. But once that's all done, right, we've got our campaigns in, we've got our list of the day in. Now we can go to send campaign, and we just click send campaign, and this will pull up our 2 fields. It'll bring up our field of our list of lists, I should say, and our list of campaigns. So we'll scroll down. At the top, we can set some scheduling if we needed to, but I typically was doing it to, day of, so I always had it scheduled to start now. But yeah, we're just going to come through. We select our list. Email 1 is going to go to, and we choose whichever list we just imported, whether that was California or what have you.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
that was the other reason I like to have the date in there too. Because, for example, it's really easy for email 2 is just going to be the people 1, 2, 3 days behind us. So on January 9th, that they're going to get email 2. And then 1, 2, 3 days behind that is going to be email 3, right?
Yeah.
So all I have to do then is look at the dates, right? It makes it real easy, and just ensures that, mistakes aren't really made. So it makes it real simple. You just boom, click, and then you scroll down, and you'll send this campaign from. You're able to actually set up a couple different addresses if you wanted to test different addresses, for example. They like to do partners and update. If you can do a first names are definitely better, in that it just, I think it definitely affects the open rate, if you see a first name as opposed to a generic. But that's just me. That's just me. Yeah, and so, and then you click schedule. And then you click schedule, and it drops it into the schedule, and you're able to see. Actually, it drops into statistics right away. Pretty much as soon as it's scheduled, you'll see that drop into the statistics page, and it'll give it a little pinwheel as it's going. And as the statistics start rolling in, you'll see them update here live. They'll actually update right here, and they'll have it for you, kind of all of the opens, clicks, kind of the basic stuff up at the top, kind of hidden in there. But and then if you're, you can actually also reply within here and keep track of replies. Within Monitor, you just drop down to replies, and it'll break it down based off which email you're sending it from. So another great way to kind of, if you were doing, kind of some testing between 2 different emails, you can also see, who's getting the most replies pretty easily. But also you can drop in here. This is the one thing that's not necessarily my favorite. I wish they had more of like a normal kind of email window. It's something I'm trying to bring up to them, where it was kind of like where it dropped down within the window instead of bringing up this pop-up. You see, it brings it up as a pop-up
Oh,
every time.
sure. Yeah.
So that's really my only thing I've had, and I've brought it to their attention too. Like, I would prefer it to pop up within this page, right? So where you don't
Right.
have to, yeah, don't have to wait on that pop-up every time. But yeah, that's really kind of the basics of it. Any questions? I know I was going pretty quick there.
Well, I
Um,
recorded, but no, I think that's really helpful. I think I watched the videos, but
yes.
I love the idea of naming them. I think that's a huge,
It
hit.
really is. Yeah, it just helps keep it so organized and ensures, it just helps reduce, of course, the amount of mistakes and that kind of thing that do happen.
Awesome. John, I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mark. It's been my pleasure. And if you have any more questions or anything like that, don't hesitate to reach out.
I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
No doubt. You too. You have a great one.